They find you, every time, the narcissist at work, the friend who drains you, the partner who twists your words until you doubt your own memory. You've left them behind, promised yourself never again, and yet here they are. Different face, same poison. This isn't coincidence. This isn't bad luck. There is a pattern inside you that attracts them like a beacon. And until you understand it, you will keep repeating this cycle for the rest of your life. Pattern beacon cycle. Today, we're going to dissect exactly why manipulators are drawn to you, not to blame you, but to free you. Because once you see the pattern, you can finally break it. We'll explore the psychological wounds that make you visible to predators, the unconscious signals you're broadcasting, and the beliefs you carry that make you the perfect target. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is your wake-up call. Let's begin. The wound they smell. Manipulators don't choose their targets randomly. They have an almost preternatural ability to detect vulnerability, and that vulnerability almost always traces back to childhood. Think about it. Did you grow up in a home where love was conditional, where approval had to be earned through performance, obedience, or silence, where you learned that your needs came second or last, or not at all? Manipulators can sense this wound from across a crowded room. Research in attachment psychology shows that people with anxious attachment styles, often developed in inconsistent or emotionally unavailable households, are significantly more likely to end up in relationships with narcissists and manipulators. Why? Because that inconsistency feels familiar. It feels like home. The push and pull, the intermittent reinforcement, the constant effort to earn love, your nervous system recognizes it. We are attracted to partners whose behavior replicates the emotional patterns of our childhood. The manipulator doesn't create your wound. They find it. They press on it. And your reaction, your desperate attempt to heal what was never healed, is exactly what they're counting on. But here's what they don't want you to know. The empathy trap. Your greatest strength is their favorite weapon. You're empathetic. You see the good in people. When someone tells you about their difficult past, you feel it. When they explain why they hurt you, you understand. When they promise to change, you believe them because you know people can change. Empathy becomes weapon, and this is precisely what makes you vulnerable. Studies on narcissistic abuse patterns show that manipulators specifically target highly empathetic individuals. They test you early, a small boundary violation, a subtle guilt trip, an excuse that doesn't quite add up. If you accept it, if you make excuses for them, if you try to understand rather than protect yourself, they know they've found their mark. Your empathy becomes the door they walk through again and again. The problem isn't that you're too kind. The problem is that you extend to others a compassion you rarely extend to yourself. You forgive their cruelty while holding yourself to impossible standards. You see their pain but dismiss your own. Empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. The manipulator reads this imbalance like a map, and they follow it straight to your heart. But empathy isn't the only signal you're sending. Invisible signals you're broadcasting every day in ways you can't see and probably don't believe. Your body language, your tone of voice, the way you apologize for existing, the way you over-explain yourself, the way you laugh nervously when someone makes you uncomfortable instead of calling it out. Manipulators are fluent in this language. Research on nonverbal communication shows that people with lower self-esteem display specific physical markers: less eye contact, more self-touching behaviors, smaller physical presence, excessive nodding and agreeing. Predators recognize these signals instantly. They're scanning for them. In their world, these signals mean one thing: this person won't fight back. Low self-esteem signal. But here's the disturbing part. You probably don't even know you're doing it. These behaviors were learned so young, practiced so long, that they feel like personality. They feel like you. But they are not who you are. They are who you learn to be. And anything learned can be unlearned. The question is, what were you taught to believe about yourself that made these signals necessary? This leads us to something even more fundamental: the core belief. Somewhere buried deep in your psyche, there's a belief, a core belief. It was installed before you had the language to question it, and it's been running your life ever since. Maybe it's I'm not enough. Maybe it's I have to earn love. Maybe it's my needs don't matter, or perhaps the most dangerous one of all, if I just love them enough, they'll change. Lies. These aren't just thoughts. They're operating systems. They filter every experience, every relationship, every decision, and manipulators are experts at activating them. The core beliefs we hold about ourselves become self-fulfilling prophecies. Cognitive behavioral therapy has identified that people who attract repeated manipulation often share what psychologists call a schema, a deep pattern of thinking that feels like absolute truth. The abandonment schema makes you tolerate abuse to avoid being left. The defectiveness schema makes you believe you deserve the treatment you're receiving. The manipulator didn't create these beliefs, but they exploit them masterfully. They know exactly which buttons to push because you've been pushing them yourself for years. But where did these beliefs come from? The answer takes us back further than you might expect. Family blueprint. Your first relationships taught you what love looks like. And if those relationships were dysfunctional, if love came with criticism, control, or chaos, then dysfunction is what you recognize as love. This is the family blueprint, the original template. Family shapes everything. Consider this. Children of narcissistic parents often grow up to either become narcissists themselves or become their preferred targets. Why? Because they learned specific roles. They learned to be the fixer, the peacekeeper, the invisible one, the golden child who must perform. They learn that their value comes from what they provide to others, not from who they are. These roles become prisons we carry into every future relationship. Research on intergenerational trauma shows that attachment patterns can be transmitted across generations. The way your grandmother was treated by her mother shaped how your mother treated you. And now here you are, unconsciously seeking what's familiar while hoping for something different. We repeat what we don't repair. The manipulator isn't an accident in your story. They are a recurring character. But here's where it gets even more complex. Trauma bonding. Why can't you just leave? Why do you keep going back? Why does the worst person you've ever known feel more compelling than someone who actually treats you well? This is trauma bonding, and it's biological. When someone alternates between cruelty and kindness, when they hurt you and then love bomb you, your brain creates powerful chemical associations. The relief of their approval after their rejection triggers a dopamine rush stronger than any stable, healthy relationship could provide. It's addiction. Literally. Abuse creates addiction. Studies show that intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable rewards and punishments, creates the strongest behavioral conditioning. Slot machines use this principle. So do manipulators. Your nervous system becomes addicted to the chaos, not the person. This is why you feel bored by someone kind, why safety feels suspicious, why peace makes you anxious. Your system is wired for chaos, and it interprets drama as passion and instability as excitement. Trauma bonds are extremely difficult to break because they hijack our survival mechanisms. Breaking free isn't just an emotional challenge. It's a neurological rewiring. And that leads us to the hidden role you might be playing without knowing it. The savior complex. Be honest with yourself. Part of you believes you can fix them. Part of you is drawn to broken people because saving them would mean something. If you could love them enough, understand them enough, be patient enough, maybe you could heal them. And then finally, someone would see your worth. Dangerous. This is the savior complex, and manipulators exploit it ruthlessly. They present themselves as wounded. They share their tragic backstory early, the abusive parents, the terrible ex, the world that never understood them. They position themselves as the misunderstood one who just needs someone like you to finally see them. And you take the bait, because saving others feels easier than saving yourself. But here's the truth. You cannot love someone into being healthy. You cannot fix someone who uses their brokenness as a weapon. You can't save people, you can only love them. The savior complex is often a deflection. It's easier to focus on someone else's wounds than to face your own. Their drama becomes your distraction. But when you stop trying to rescue others, you might finally have to rescue yourself. Speaking of avoidance, fear of solitude, what are you really afraid of? Not being alone with yourself. Silence reveals everything. When you're in a toxic relationship, you're constantly reacting. There's always a crisis to manage, an emotion to process, a problem to solve. It's exhausting, but it's also a distraction. It keeps you from the terrifying stillness of being alone with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own unprocessed pain. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Many people stay with manipulators not because they love them, but because they fear what silence would reveal. The emptiness, the questions, the grief that's been waiting for decades to be felt. Manipulators sense this fear, and they use it to control you. They know you're more afraid of being alone than of being mistreated, so they threaten abandonment whenever you push back. They remind you that no one else will want you, and because you believe them, because some part of you has always believed you're not worth wanting, you stay. But what if solitude isn't punishment? What if it's medicine? This brings us to perhaps the hardest truth. Boundaries are love. You were taught that boundaries are selfish, that saying no is mean, that putting yourself first is wrong, that accommodating everyone else's needs, no matter the cost to you, is what good people do. This programming makes you pray. Manipulators test boundaries immediately. They push a little, watch your reaction. If you accommodate, they push more. If you explain, justify, apologize for having limits, they know they've found someone who will sacrifice themselves. No is complete sentence. Here's what you need to understand. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're filters that determine who gets in. They're not selfish. They're the most fundamental form of self-respect. Daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. Every boundary you set is a declaration that you matter. The people who leave when you set boundaries were only there to exploit their absence. The right people, the healthy people, will respect your limits. They'll be relieved you have them. They'll feel safer knowing you can protect yourself. But boundaries alone aren't enough. There's one more piece: becoming invisible. The goal isn't to become suspicious of everyone. It isn't to close your heart or become as cold as those who hurt you. The goal is to become invisible to manipulators. And that happens when you do the inner work. When you heal the wounds they exploit, you stop broadcasting vulnerability. When you build genuine self-worth, not arrogance, but quiet knowing that you matter, you stop accepting crumbs as if they were feasts. When you face the solitude you've been running from, you stop needing chaos to feel alive. Freedom. Manipulators are not attracted to healed people because there is nothing to exploit. The wound is the place where the light enters you. This isn't about changing who you are. Your empathy, your depth, your capacity to love, these are gifts, but they must be directed first toward yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot save others while drowning. Heal yourself first. The pattern ends when you decide it ends, when you choose yourself, when you finally, after all these years, become your own safe person. The manipulators in your life were never random. They were attracted to specific wounds, specific beliefs, specific patterns that you didn't even know you were carrying. And here's the liberating truth. If you created the pattern, you have the power to break it, not by building higher walls, not by trusting no one, but by doing the deep, often painful work of healing what was broken before you had words to understand it. Heal the wound, break the pattern. The child who learned that love means sacrifice can learn that love means mutual respect. The person who believes they must earn their worth can discover they were always worthy. The one who fears solitude can find that they are finally enough. The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. This is your invitation, not to harden, but to heal, not to close off, but to open up to yourself first. The pattern is not your destiny, it's your teacher, and you've just passed the first lesson. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this opened your eyes to something you needed to see, share it with someone who's still in the pattern. Subscribe, and let's keep exploring the depths of the human psyche together.